Most men spend years trying to understand women through the wrong lens entirely, and they never even realize the lens is the problem. They study lines, they study tricks, they study what to say in the first 5 minutes of a conversation. And none of it works long-term, because the entire approach is built on a false premise that connection is something you perform rather than something you actually build. Machiavelli never wrote about women specifically. But the same cold, clear-eyed principles he used to understand power, trust, and human behavior apply with almost unsettling precision to why most men misread relationships completely, and why the men who seem to move through them effortlessly aren't using tricks at all. They're operating on a different, more honest set of rules. Quick disclaimer before we start. This is an educational breakdown of psychology and relationship dynamics, not professional advice. 7 laws. None of them are about manipulation. All of them are about understanding what actually builds trust, respect, and real connection, instead of what most men have been sold as the shortcut to it. Stay to the end, because the 7th law is the one that changes everything that came before it. Let's begin. Law 1. Neediness is readable, and it repels. Machiavelli understood that desperation, in any context, broadcasts itself whether you intend it to or not. A ruler who visibly needed an alliance to survive was already negotiating from a position of weakness before a single word was exchanged. The same mechanism runs quietly underneath early relationships. A man who needs a specific outcome, needs the date to go well, needs the text to be answered quickly, needs reassurance that things are fine, telegraphs that need in dozens of small, often unconscious ways. The over-explaining, the immediate response to every message, the visible anxiety when something goes quiet for a few hours. This isn't about playing games or manufacturing false indifference. That's a different mistake we'll get to later. It's about recognizing that genuine security reads completely differently than performed security, and most men have never actually built the real thing. They've only learned to imitate its surface. The fix isn't a tactic. It's building an actual life substantial enough that any single relationship isn't required to complete it. A man whose sense of self depends entirely on how one specific interaction goes has handed away his own stability before the relationship even started. And that instability is almost always felt, even when it's never named directly. Law 2. Most men confuse attention with understanding. Machiavelli drew a sharp distinction between appearing to understand someone's interests and actually understanding them. Rulers who assumed they knew what their allies wanted without ever genuinely investigating it consistently misjudged the relationship until it collapsed. Most men listen to respond, not to actually understand. They're formulating the next thing to say while the other person is still speaking, tracking whether the conversation is going well, rather than genuinely absorbing what's being communicated. This produces a specific, recognizable pattern. A man who can recite facts about a woman, her job, her hobbies, surface details, while having almost no real sense of what she actually values, what she's afraid of, or what she's currently navigating in her life. Real understanding requires something most men are never taught: sustained, genuine curiosity that isn't secretly waiting for its turn to talk. It requires noticing what someone doesn't say as much as what they do. It requires remembering details, not because you're performing attentiveness, but because you were actually paying attention in the first place. This distinction matters more than almost anything else discussed today, because it's the difference between a connection that deepens over time and one that quietly plateaus, without either person being able to clearly explain why. Law 3. Consistency builds trust faster than intensity. Machiavelli observed that rulers who made grand, dramatic gestures of loyalty were often trusted less, over time, than rulers whose behavior was simply unglamorously consistent. Intensity is easy to fake for a short period. Consistency is nearly impossible to fake for a long one. Many men front-load a relationship with intensity, constant attention, grand gestures, rapid escalation, and then, once the initial excitement settles, the effort drops off sharply. This pattern reads, correctly, as a signal that the intensity was never really about the person. It was about the chase, and once the chase concluded, the motivation went with it. Trust is built through small, repeated, unremarkable reliability, far more than through occasional dramatic effort. Following through on plans, being consistent in mood and behavior rather than erratic, showing up the same way on an ordinary Tuesday as during an exciting first month. This is unglamorous, and it's also almost entirely what separates relationships that deepen from ones that quietly stall after the initial spark fades. Law 4. Respect is demonstrated, not declared. Machiavelli was skeptical of declared virtue and far more interested in demonstrated behavior. What a ruler actually did under pressure mattered infinitely more than what they claimed to value. Plenty of men will say, sincerely, that they respect the women in their lives. Far fewer consistently demonstrate it in the specific moments that actually test it, respecting a boundary the first time it's stated without needing it repeated, taking a no as a complete answer rather than a negotiating position, genuinely valuing someone's opinions and decisions even when those decisions don't center him. The gap between declared respect and demonstrated respect is where most relationship damage actually occurs, and it's rarely a single dramatic violation. It's usually an accumulation of small moments, dismissing a concern as an overreaction, making a decision that affects both people without genuine input, treating a boundary as a suggestion rather than a fact. None of these moments look large individually. Collectively, they communicate something 100 verbal declarations of respect can't undo. Law 5. Emotional avoidance isn't strength. Here's where a lot of well-intentioned advice gets this badly wrong. Somewhere along the way, many men absorb the idea that emotional restraint means never engaging with difficult feelings at all, that the strong move is always to stay unbothered, to deflect, to minimize. Machiavelli's actual insight about emotional control, examined closely, was never about suppression. It was about not being controlled by unregulated reaction, which is an entirely different thing from refusing to engage with emotion honestly when it's warranted. A man who deflects every difficult conversation with humor, or shuts down entirely rather than working through conflict, isn't demonstrating strength. He's demonstrating avoidance, and avoidance quietly erodes trust just as effectively as volatility does, just more slowly and less visibly. Real emotional maturity looks like staying present during an uncomfortable conversation instead of exiting it. It looks like being able to say, "That hurt," or "I was wrong," without treating either statement as a threat to some performed version of masculinity. Women consistently report, across research on relationship satisfaction, that a partner's willingness to stay emotionally present during conflict is one of the strongest predictors of long-term relationship health, far more than any single romantic gesture. Law 6. Most men misread silence. Machiavelli spent considerable effort teaching rulers to read what wasn't being said, the silence in a court often carried more real information than the speeches. Most men never develop this skill in relationships, and it costs them constantly. Silence gets misread in both directions. Sometimes it's misread as agreement or contentment, when it's actually accumulated frustration that hasn't found the right moment to surface. Sometimes it's misread as anger requiring immediate fixing, when it's simply someone processing something and needing space to do it. The man who can't tolerate silence tends to fill it, with reassurance seeking, with anxious questions, with premature attempts to resolve something before the other person has finished working through it themselves. Learning to read silence accurately, rather than reacting to the discomfort it creates in you, is one of the more underrated relationship skills that almost never gets discussed directly. It requires tolerating your own uncertainty for a period, rather than forcing a resolution purely to relieve your own anxiety about not knowing where things stand. Law 7. The law that changes everything above it. Here's the principle that reframes all 6 that came before it, and it's the one most men, even after learning everything else, still miss entirely. None of this works as a checklist performed to produce an outcome. Machiavelli's own writing was clear that a ruler who performed virtue purely for strategic effect, without any authentic commitment underneath it, was eventually seen through, because performance and authenticity produce subtly different behavior under pressure, and people are far better at detecting that difference than they consciously realize. The 6 laws above only function as genuine relationship psychology if they come from actual respect and actual interest in another person as a full, complex individual, not as tactics deployed to produce compliance or attachment. The moment any of this becomes a strategy for extracting a specific outcome from someone, rather than a genuine way of engaging with them, it stops working, because the person on the other end will, sooner or later, feel the difference between being understood and being managed. This is the actual answer to what most men get wrong. It was never really about learning the right techniques. It was about the quiet, unglamorous work of becoming someone genuinely secure, genuinely attentive, and genuinely consistent. Not performing those qualities as a means to an end, but actually building them, because a real connection was never something that could be extracted through the right sequence of moves in the first place. Machiavelli's deepest insight was never really about manipulation in relationships or in politics. It was about honesty regarding how trust actually gets built, slowly, through demonstrated behavior, not through declared intention or clever technique. This week, pick one of these 7 laws and look honestly at where you actually stand on it, not where you'd like to believe you stand. That honest assessment is worth more than any tactic this video could have offered instead. If this named something you needed to hear, tell me in the comments which law hit hardest. And if you want the next one the moment it drops, subscribe, because next time we're covering the same principles from the other direction, what most women get wrong in exactly the same way. I'll see you in the next one.